Bukia Jishian Metoptram Riraling Chian Yundem Padi Sange Shindu Amidhe Gawargi Rohun Namda Shinla Triparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami Shiranga Soghi Shobnam Ha Janchu Bardu Dakni Yapsuchi Dakiya Shinyan Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho Shidang Soghi Shobnam La Janchu Bardu Dakmi Gapsuchi Dakiya Shinyan Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho Shudang Soghi Chobnam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Dakiya Chinyan Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Benchir Sange Druparsho. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the meditation for the class we didn't finish last week. And I won't get to finish it either. I think this was the meditation. This was not the meditation. I take it back. There was some other meditation. So we're going to do a quick review, only insofar as what has the Buddha and what have Subhuti and the Buddha been talking about, and how is it getting us closer and closer to enlightenment, all to do with the understanding of emptiness. Yeah. So the Buddha keeps dropping answers to Subhuti, so Subhuti would not stay holding some self-existence to any of the answers. I'm hoping you've got that flavor already, right? Is that a yes or a no? Oh yeah, right? It's like there's no ground, and we're going to now go a little bit further than last time, and we'll get to it. Sorry I didn't finish last week's class, but I figured if you got the flavor of the sutra so far, you could answer those questions, because it's exactly the same with anything you bring up now. Yeah. Does this exist? The Buddha would ask, and Subhuti would say, no, that's precisely why it exists. It does not exist, that's precisely why it exists. Or something like that. Is a computer, Subhuti? And Subhuti would go, of course it's not. It's not a computer, because if it were a computer, it couldn't be a computer. That's why it's a computer. Or something like that. Does that help you? There is no nature in this thing, in anything at all. Zero nature. It's empty of a nature. It does not mean it doesn't exist. It does exist as a computer, dependent on your karma. That's precisely why it's a computer for you. Yeah, for a cat, it's a pee-pee pad.
So how much free will do you have?
You have as much free will as you have the karma to experience. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that's what we want to do now. Whenever these answers come with this sutra, we're always doing, well, how about this? And how about that? And it's one of two extremes. Either things exist, I either have free will without my projections, or there's no free will at all. And that's, the Buddha's trying to go, no, dumbass. Come, there's a whole world in the middle that you can't see, the middle way. And our minds just can't hold that. So we're forever ping-ponging between things exist one way or they don't exist at all. So we're going, yeah? So catch your minds as you're asking these questions, because that's what's going to happen. And that's normal. That's good. So I'll go through... we'll see. You'll see what this class is about. So this is where we're up to in the sutra. Supriya, I don't know why I keep thinking, can you read it? Mm-hmm.
To the Buddha, suppose, O Subhuti, that some bodhisattva were to say, I am working to bring about my paradise. This would not be spoken true. Why is it so? Because the ones thus gone have stated that these paradises, what we call paradises, these lands that we work to create, do not even exist. And this is precisely why we can even call them paradise. So
someone deconstruct that for me, the second half. These lands, which are like pure lands, they're called, right? The paradise of a Buddha, or like we live on planet Earth and New York for us is our home. Everything we see has New York flavor to it, right? Full of rats, smells, sweat in the subway, yeah? Really, that's our paradise. That's our world. According to this, it doesn't have the nature that we experience from it. That nature comes from us. That's what makes it New York, the New York you experience. If a Buddha were to experience, a Buddha that has no mental afflictions, nothing disturbing their mind, and only the highest virtues, then they would be forced to experience this very same, what we call subway, not the sandwich, what we call rat, not the sandwich, no, not the thing holding the sandwich. They would be forced to experience that data as complete bliss. At the same time as we're experiencing it as dirty, disgusting New York subway. Our land, a Buddha land, yeah? It's not like you're going to heaven. It's not like, oh, I'm off to heaven. It's here. It's wherever your perceptions are. We are forced to experience this reality. And it ain't out there. And that's what Buddha's trying to say to Subhuti over and over. So here, he's saying, all these bodhisattvas that are trying to reach Buddhahood, they're trying to experience these Buddha lands, these pure, and there's names for them, Okmin, like the heaven below no other, and there's all these names which we can get lost about if we study Buddhism. But the point is that you can have a perception of everything and everyone around you as complete bliss, and that would make you a Buddha if you didn't have anything tripping it up later. Make sense? So everyone's trying to have that experience according to the sutras. Like, how do we get enlightened, Buddha? Buddha says, if you want to get enlightened, everyone's trying to create their paradises, their Buddha realms, their pure lands, right? They're trying to cause it by doing bodhisattva activity, by meditating, by doing all these actions. They're trying to generate the karma that's going to force a Buddha land for them. And if they think that there really is a Buddha land, then they're no Buddha lands. Yeah, that's why we can call them Buddha lands, because they don't have that nature. We call them, we name them, and it's a pun. And so it's not anyone that would say, I'm working to bring about my paradise. The pun is not spoken. This would not be spoken true. What would the pun be there? It would not be spoken true for some high spiritual being who's that close to enlightenment to say, I'm about to bring about my paradise. If they actually meant that self-existently, it would not be true reality. Which means, what's true reality? The pun. True ultimate reality. True existence, ultimate existence is no true existence. There's no nature of that kind. You'll never leave this shitty New York and go over there. Like Bahamas is just as shitty as New York because it's coming from you. Right. It's not in the Bahamas.
Here with your crap wherever you are.
Yeah, eventually the Bahamas will be like, Shit, it's so hot. Why is it so blue? So the fact that you're projecting your realm, thinking that you're going to find the realm, and you're working really hard to find that realm, you wouldn't be speaking true existence, true reality. So that's a pun there, and it works in the Sanskrit, it works in the English as well. Why it's so? Because the one gone, who is the ones thus gone? Who are they? The Buddhas. Gone where? Yeah, they've left samsara suffering. What we call paradises or pure realms or whatever, these lands that we work to create do not even exist. How? Self-existent, out there, separate from my experience of them. You will never find a thing that is just right, that is independent of you somehow. And you were talking about cockroaches? Oh no, what were you talking about? Flies in your apartment. Now I've made it into cockroach-infested apartment. Flies and cockroaches. And you said, rightly so, there's some connection to me, right? Yeah, why doesn't the neighbor have the same flies or as many flies? Why does my apartment have this? There's some connection between us and the experience of the realm we're having. And this sutra is trying to get us to look at that. You're not in a shitty relationship because the other person's shitty. Sorry. Sorry. Difficult eye contact with the wrong person. Sorry.
Are you creating bad karma when you kill mosquitoes or flies?
See, our minds keep going that. Every action has a consequence. Everything. And 90%, and there's a whole 10-week course on karma. Yeah? Every time your mind is recording, doing an action of body, speech, or mind, when you're observing your actions, 90% is intention. Nobody knows what you're doing in your head. You do. That doesn't disappear. That knowing, that raw awareness doesn't just disappear. It builds and has consequences and grows. So there's a living thing. You have a conception, mosquito is alive.
Well, exactly. You just
Yeah.
do it without.
You did it without doing. What kind of being would have the habit to just destroy living things? One that has that habit. Yeah? Now, did you intend it? Probably not. You didn't sit there and think, oh, the mosquito has a mosquito mommy and it's got mosquito daddy and siblings, and it was probably excited to go to mosquito school, and I just killed it. Like you don't, because you wouldn't think that way, but you could afterwards go, oh, what impulse would have me destroy a living thing? Yeah, and if consequence occur because of that, then I just destroyed some life. That imprint is inside me somewhere. You can't remove it. You have awareness that a living thing stopped living because of connected to you. We must have the consequences of that ripen in our mind. Yeah. Now that can freeze us. Yeah. That's why you asked about the flies. Flies, mosquitoes, same. Yeah.
If you ask someone to kill for you.
Yeah. Great. No problem. Ask them. Then what do you plant? What conception do you have in your mind? Creating murderers, right? So, no, but seriously, you cannot escape what your mind is aware of. And there are degrees, yeah? There are degrees of knowing and action. You can't stop the habits that got us here. We're in a realm where these habits, some things are law. It's okay to kill, like some countries say, kill them. It's okay. And we're all like, yeah, kill them. We fund war. Yeah, kill them. Like we share in that thing. You can't just escape it because now cause and effect are also applicable to consciousness. Yeah, but you then have to begin to shift. What in line with your capacity and understanding. Mm-hmm. But that's not today's course. That's another course. Did you want to add something quick?
Isn't it 64, 68 seeds are planted every finger?
64, yeah, or 65.
Just think about even your slightest thoughts are being planted.
Yeah.
So not even just
It's a lot.
Per person?
Huh? Per finger snap, per millisecond.
Yeah, every
Just
millisecond.
per mind. Yeah. That's they say that's why you have the awareness of movement. It's distinct movements of mind that create the reality we step into every millisecond. It's another way of looking at the world.
Think about
Another
like
core
24 frames per second.
is a movie.
It's like a movie.
So 3 times that.
We're
Yeah.
like HD.
Okay, we're good. We're finished with the thing we're not going to cover. Yeah. So, but get into the taste of it, right? Buddha's going, hold on a minute. You think you're going to land some paradise? If you think it's out there, you're not going to. They exist because they don't exist. That's why they exist. They exist for those that have the seeds to experience them, because they don't exist out there separate from beings experiencing them, their seeds. That's why they exist. The only way they exist is in relation to the minds that are experiencing that raw data that doesn't have a nature in the particular way you're forced to. You can't wish it. If we could wish it, we'd all be fine. Yeah? You can't wish it. You have to cause it. You're not immune from cause and effect. In fact, cause and effect is what's moving your world, and it's happening in your mind more than out there. Here we go. Do you remember this? The 5 paths? So the sutra has been asking questions and answering questions, moving us from the beginning. How should a bodhisattva think? And what should they do? And what should we act like? If I want to get out of samsara, if I want to get out of the suffering of life, what the hell should I do, Buddha? Not only that, if I want to be close to being like you, completely free from all suffering, if I want to aspire to be like you, have bodhisattva ideal, the wish for waking up for the sake of everyone else that's just like me. If for those beings, what should we do? How should we think? How should we act? Yeah? How should we conduct ourselves? Before this, everybody enters this world, and we call it pre the 5 paths. We're like zombies addicted to stuff. Yeah, and it's everything, internal and external stuff. I'm addicted to getting more this, more that, less of this, less of that, feeling good, feeling bad, feeling terrible, feeling depressed, feeling joyous, having drugs, having this. Like, we just consume. And at some point, you'll hit your face on the concrete enough times to say it's not working. Something is not working. Too many boyfriends, always the same. Too many jobs, always the same. The boss it's the 5th boss with the same shitty attitude. Might not be the boss. Might be something connected to me. As hard as that step is, that one step of recognizing maybe I'm the common denominator to all the particular shittiness in my world, all of a sudden turns the attention from shifting it all out there to going, maybe there's something here I can work on. And you know, that's it. That's the saving grace. Because if it is in here, if it is our projections that are creating the experiences, you can change it for real. It's in your consciousness. It's in your mind, in your intentions. You can choose. If your life being destroyed slowly, aging and death, comes from killing mosquitoes, destroying other lives, if that cause produces that effect, all of a sudden you can stop killing mosquitoes. It might take you a little while, but you would make sure your house was mosquito-free so you didn't kill them or something. And your every intention was to protect life. You can control that. If it wasn't anything to do with that, you're screwed. If there is a big bearded dude over there saying, sorry, you're dead, you didn't pray nice enough, next. I like you. Yeah, you can live a little while, but with cancer. There you go. Now, seriously, if there was someone else deciding your fate, you're screwed. If it had nothing to do with you, if it's random, you're screwed. May as well go out, drink, party, do the hell you want. But what if this theory, this thing that the Buddha saw is true? That the only way you experience anything is completely connected to what you do in your world. That the courses you've created in your mind in the past are equal to the results, the consequences you're stepping into all the time. If you operate your world that way, then there's a bunch of work you can do in here and you can see the transformation. It won't be fast. It'll take time. But if you've gotten a result once of, if I stop killing mosquitoes, I should get healthier. Example, right? And so you try really hard, no killing anything. I feel very healthy. So if you can make that correlation with certainty, or whatever it is, the angry boss, it was for me, for the TED Talk, verified that not hating produced a kind of love that was unsurpassed. And then I saw how my mind fabricated that. If you could do that experiment for yourself, which could take 3 months, 6 months, whatever, then you have a map. You can use this system. And not only that, you would understand the code inside the Diamond Sutra. But until then, we're addicted to getting the next cup of coffee and the next internet something and the next bit of sexy time, and and then we don't want the sexy time. Like, who's ever had a partner that you're like, I can't wait to have more sex. And then after you've been with them for, 2 months? No. Years, then you're like, I'm not that into sex today. Whereas, you were ravenous day one. And then you're like, can we just go to sleep? What happened? If that being is sexy and you just can't have enough, what happened? Yeah, and we'll get to what happened today. Yeah, so everything here breaks. Here meaning samsara. And so at some point, we get fed up of things not working. And then we actually enter the first path, which we covered early on, right? We enter the path of accumulation. Fair? And that the marker for that we talked about in previous verses was renunciation, right? Leaving the home life, meaning I'm done trying to get happy by changing careers or changing boyfriends or changing diet, or I'm still going to do those things. You don't not have to do those things. You can't stop living, right? You still live and do your things. But I've stopped putting all my hopes that that's what's going to change my inner state. That my inner world changes when I change my inner world. That's a flip from out there to in here. And that's a kind of renunciation. I'm done with the home life, with the way that everyone says I should live. Make sense? That's the first path. Then what was the second path? Path of? Once you've accumulated enough goodness by saying it's not going to be that, it's going to be this inner world. Once you've done enough accumulating, you enter the path of preparation. You're preparing for something. And what's the main essence of that path? What's the main goal of that path? What are you doing to your mind?
Study.
You study what?
Emptiness.
Why? But we're saying the Buddhist thing. Don't tell me a Buddhist thing. What are we actually trying to understand? If we're fed up with the old way of doing things, yeah, we're saying, where did happiness actually come from? Where did all this suffering come from? I've stopped the boyfriend and the girlfriend, or putting my hopes out there. Now I'm putting the hopes in here, in the mind that perceives everything. Now I want to investigate reality. How is it that my mind is creating this? If I am the common denominator, how the hell is that happening? So you get thirsty in this path of accumulation. You're accumulating insight. You're going, let me understand this or understand that or understand this. How is my mind doing this? What's karma and emptiness in a Buddhist context? Yeah. What's the ultimate nature of reality, and how is my dependent reality occurring? So you get really busy trying to figure out this causality in your mind. It includes meditation, it includes intellectual understanding of emptiness, and at the highest, at the peak, it's this concept of Chi Chedrak, right? Do you remember that? Yeah. And that's a heavy concept. Takes a lot of familiarization with that concept, but in essence,
General and specific.
yeah,
The car.
it's
The car and the Jaguar.
It's car, the car, and a car. There's a subtle difference between saying mouse, a mouse, or the mouse. We look at this object and we know it's a mouse. It's not a mouse. Nobody said it's not, right? But the question is, what is it that's suggesting mouse to you about this object? Why did your mind know its thing? And it looks like a mouse, doesn't it? Have you seen all the mice in the world? Have you seen all of them to be able to say this is one of those? You don't know all the mouses, right? But this has some characteristic that has mouse-ness, yeah? And the mouse-ness about it, that knowing that you have, where the hell did that come from? Who put it there? You can say, oh, mum taught me. I learned it. Okay, why did it stick to you? Because I can teach a puppy, mouse, mouse, mouse. Why is their mind not conceiving of it as mouse? That proves this thing don't have mouse-ness in it. That there's something in my mind having that quality. And then that this is characteristic of that quality. Now, I don't want to get too much into that, but the way our minds idealize objects, and not just physical objects, it's easy to do with physical objects, harder to do with moving sentient beings. Like what's fly-ness about that fly? Yeah? Like it's a fly. But what makes it fly? How did your mind recognize fly in that thing? And understanding that will get you to a point where you will notice, in meditation in particular, where you can slow this thing down, where you look at that thing you called fly and say, what are the signals there that has fly coming at me? Without my mind pushing fly onto it, conceptualizing fly, what is it about that thing? Is it the wingy thing? Is it the blah blah thing? Is it are those qualities of fly? And so when you investigate that in meditation, you'll come up empty, that there's nothing in that thing that has those things. And if you are fortunate enough, if you've built enough goodness in you, you will see how your mind is completely doing that against your will almost, just constantly, 65 times a finger snap, a person, a room, a thing, like you're not even thinking about it. And your mind is constantly creating your reality. And once you get that, then there's no return to thinking you're going to get happy with more ice cream or hurting another person. Or there's no turning back the worldview because you've seen something that functions, that is more umbrella. Even if you taste it intellectually, it's difficult to go back.
What if it makes you sad instead of happy then? You haven't seen it?
If it makes you sad instead of happy, then you have seeds for sadness and you can remove them too. And that's okay. It should make you sad. I think I'm a kind of melancholy person, and the more I realize the nature of this thing, there is a sadness that comes, but it's a sweet sadness. It's a kind of, oh my God, Hector, you've done this shitty thing without knowing. It's a kind of, I'm so sorry. It's a kind of compassion. I'm so sorry. We can change that. Yeah. So in the path of preparation, we're preparing to have a direct experience of reality. We're preparing our minds to understand the real nature of reality. And so the Buddha and Subhuti have been ping-ponging this idea by saying, no, it's not this, that's why it's this, so it's not this, that's why it is this, etc. Yeah? And so from the path of preparation, where you've fully tried to investigate over and over time, not tomorrow, over time, really taking your time to investigate everything in your world and try and break the idea, you'll come to realize your mind is projecting reality at some point. At the peak of that, you have what's called the direct perception of dependent origination, story. And then you enter the path of seeing, where you actually, in meditation, have a direct experience of emptiness, of the lack of inherent existence in things. So in this path of seeing, they say it's indescribable. If you're on the bodhisattva track, which means if you've been trying to wake up for the sake of every living being, this becomes your first bodhisattva ground or bhumi. Yeah? And in this experience, in meditation, you have what they call it water poured into water. You have a kind of experience that in the experience you can't be aware of yourself having the experience, but when you come back from the experience, when you begin to descend from that meditation, you realize you saw something ultimate, you realize you just have never had a correct perception in your entire life. You always thought things were that way, and for the first time you saw how your mind actually does that because things don't have a nature. You stop the doubt that you've been having about, should I do this or should I do that? That doubt disappears. There's a whole story, and those realizations that come to you after you come down from that meditation are grouped into 4 core ideas, and they're called the 4 Arya truths or 4 noble truths. Yeah, which is you realize suffering exists because your mind is mistaken about where things come from. You think this has a nature. You think it's coming this way. You always thought that way. So the only way to get more of these, because I like them, is to make sure you don't get them. And so you begin to plant karmas of selfishness and things that prevent other people's happinesses. And in that, you've created your own unhappiness. And for the first time you see it, you're like, oh, you think things have a nature, so you want to get the things you like, avoid the things you don't like. And if I push them out there, I'm going to be okay. And that's a mistake. And that mistake causes you to suffer. And you see that for the very first time, and you're like, oh my God, I am the cause of suffering. You see suffering, all those things are going to produce suffering. I am the cause of suffering. Hell yeah, better than someone else. And then you realize that because of that, the suffering can end. You can actually stop every single suffering, because you now understand the nature of things. You saw emptiness directly. That's just the Buddhist words. But you saw the reality of things. They don't have a nature. The nature comes from me. The only way to get more of these things is to give them away. That plants the seed for me to get more. It's an inside out, upside down world we live in. You realize all suffering can really end. And then you realize, oh, I have to actually do it. Just knowing that doesn't make it so, okay? And then you enter the path of habituation, which is the hard work. After having this direct experience of how things function and knowing what to do in relation to that, you then have to do it. But there's a huge difference between the path of seeing and before the path of seeing, and the path of seeing and the path of habituation. What's that big difference? One of the qualities of a Arya.
Action. You not just understand, but you actually do it.
Why would you do it?
Because you understand.
How do you understand it? Different to before. Maya?
You see that the reality you're experiencing is a lie, but you still live in that reality.
Amazing. Okay, so one of the qualities, so you're no longer a so-so kewo, which means just a normal being that keeps experiencing reality as having a quality out there. You just had a direct experience of how things actually are. The only nature they have is the stuff my mind is labeling them, chijedra. And because of that, you're like, oh my God, I've got this universe in my hands. I've got this universe here. I can completely transform it. When you come down from that meditation of seeing that, the old habits that got you in the trouble in the first place, they still come back, and they continue. The old habits of seeing things as having a nature on their own, that's also a projection, so they continue. The difference is, because of what you saw, you don't believe it anymore. Yeah, this appears out there separate to you. Before seeing emptiness directly, doesn't matter how many times I tell you, you're still going to think there is a mouse out there and I have to go and work with that mouse out there. After you see emptiness directly, you see your relationship to this object and the experience of it as being useful mouse or unuseful mouse or pain in the ass mouse or whatever comes completely from you, but it appears still as if it's coming that way. The only thing is you no longer believe that lie. That's the meaning of illusion in Buddhism. The illusion that it has some quality, that flowers are nice or bad, that ice cream is good or bad. It appears as ice cream is great. Your music, it has the quality of being good or bad. Right? Your favorite piece of music, it does not have that quality. It comes from you, the bliss or joy you get. Have you not noticed all the people you've tried to make them listen to your playlist and they're like, God, yeah, that's really nice. It's not in the substance. Now the difference is, before you saw emptiness directly, you were acting in the world as if things had a nature out there. After seeing emptiness directly, nothing changed. Things still appear as if they have a quality, and you have the impulse for grabbing that quality out there. But you don't believe it, so you don't kill mosquitoes.
What if it's the opposite? Like, what if it's you go to your lover or you go to your parent for an embrace because you want or need their love or affection, or that's what you feel that they do. And for whatever reason, they do not reciprocate.
Yeah.
What kind of object is that in terms of, like, you feel rejected or you feel sad or whatever, that it is you in your mind feeling rejected and sad?
The world won't stop delivering you suffering through the path of habituation, but the suffering gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you undo the causes. So let's say you've seen emptiness directly, you go up to your lover and go, oh, I just saw emptiness directly, which you're not allowed to say. Can you give me a hug? I really want that recognition, because you still got the old seeds of wanting recognition out there. And they're like, oh, you're weird. And then they give you a little, and you feel rejection. After seeing emptiness directly, where do you know for sure rejection comes from? You having rejected others in the past. That's it. And so instead of rejecting them for rejecting you, you're like, oh, no problem, I adore you, thank you. Because the last thing, it's just like King Kalinga. That's where we were at last. Yeah, King Kalinga is somewhere in the previous verse, is somewhere in the path of habituation on the 8th bodhisattva bhumi or something, where he's like, you're chopping my limbs. That hurts. But if I hate you right now, I'm going to create more chopping limbs. So go for it. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
It's not that you're not hurting part, it's that it's permanent. Like, that's
What do you mean it's permanent?
in my head. Well, as long as that monk exists in the physical world, he's got no arms left.
Until he dies.
Yes.
And you're never going to die.
Okay.
He was going to die anyway.
No, I mean, I'm looking for every way to
Yeah.
wrap my head around
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
So in the path of habituation, you go through the 10 bodhisattva bhumis. We haven't started class yet, by the way. I just wanted to get us to, there are levels and levels of unraveling reality, and each one is finer and finer and finer. Okay? And just knowing it just creates a map in our minds. Being able to engage with it, like, I like that your questions, because they apply to your real world. Yeah, when you go home and you have a shitty experience with a partner, if you've seen emptiness directly, it could only have ever come from you being shitty to other people. So the last thing you want to do is be shitty to your partner because they were shitty with you. Even if it takes everything. And most of the Buddhist texts all give you little band-aids, all sorts of different shaped band-aids, how not to get shitty at them, walk out of the room, don't say that, say this, until you can hold your mind strong enough to understand that everything you do to them will come back to you manyfold. So you choose. And then after seeing emptiness directly, it's tick-tock, closer, 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 closer to the path of no more learning, which is enlightenment. Yeah? So every moment after the path of habituation starts, you're beginning to remove all the things in your mind that would create problems for you. And they say it can take up to 7 lifetimes. It can happen in 1. They can say it can happen to 7. If not, it's indefinite how long you'd have to go through the lives of being chopped up over and over and over.
So there's no such thing as winning in Buddhism. There's only reaching enlightenment.
That is winning. The only winning you do is getting out of suffering and getting others out of suffering. Suffering doesn't have to happen. This experience of, and the Buddha said, birth, aging, sickness, and death don't have to happen. They are caused things. a sentient, a consciousness, don't have to experience those things. They do here because they're caused. As soon as you're born here, you're going to die. Pretending you're not, pretending you're not won't stop that. Imagining you won't, imagining I'm going to be a Buddha one day, also won't stop that. It's cause and effect. If cause and effect are true, something's causing your death. Something's causing the perception of your death. Something's causing the perception that it's permanent. Something's causing the perception that it can be broken. Something's causing the perception that is causing your perception. If cause and effect are true, everything is up for transformation without exception. And a common theme in all these texts is our conceptions are too small to even consider that possibility. All we want is I just want this good life, thanks. Well, you're about to have an infinite number of this good life that ends badly. How many more do you want? Another one. How many more? Another one. How will I die next life? Cancer. And the one after? King Kalinga. And the one after? Aborted. And the next one? So indefinite. And then real. They're not like it hurts here. It's caused. It doesn't have to be that way. Sorry. You caught yourself halfway through a race that already is chopping you up. You think you're invincible. Not true. And if cause and effect are true, it doesn't have to be that way. I'll cover it when we get there. Sorry to go heavy on you, but that's why I went heavy last time. That's why they didn't come back. Okay, then after you've habituated this realization that reality doesn't have a nature, and you are forced to experience whatever you've caused in your mind appears as your universe, as your world, as your boss, as your lovers, as your tastes, as your wants. They didn't come from nowhere. You liking a particular kind of music isn't random. It's you. Why doesn't she like it? You liking a particular kind of person is not the person or random. It's you. Why do you have these nuances? It's you. And if you can accept that and go in and look and dig, try and change one or two of those flavors. And ultimately, you can change being human. The fact that you perceive yourself as human is also forced upon you by your perception. Someone that reaches enlightenment is forced to experience their minds as, I'm free from suffering, dude. Just the same as this, except with no shittiness. If it's a projection, why have the broken perception? And it's because of misunderstanding of where the world comes from. And once you understand that, you remove the thing that causes you to hurt others to get what you want. And when you stop hurting, you stop hurting. When you stop creating the causes for hurt, you stop the results of hurt. That's where otherwise it's not an intellectual, let's understand emptiness because Buddhism's cool, dude, die. No. It really, and I'm saying this because I'm old. I feel it. I had hair. It's coming at you. It's coming at you and it's not outside of you. It's deep inside of you and it doesn't have to be that way. So, enlightenment, we covered the 4 bodies of a Buddha, but basically it's like you have a physical and a mental experience of yourself as enlightened, forced by your perceptions. Does that make sense? So now this class is all about, how do you get that? How do you get these bodies how do you get this paradise? How do you get this Buddha land? Yeah, and experience yourself in these 4 bodies, the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and let's call it the Dharmakaya to not go weird on the last 2. Yeah, because it's weird. It's complicated. It's got a bunch of texts and debates and concepts, but you should know at least the direction that we're heading. In the 5 paths, in this part of the sutra, Buddha's gone, you think you're going to have an enlightened experience and experience this Buddha land? You are, but not the way you think it is. And you'll be a certain way, but not the way you think it is. So these are the 4 bodies. And now this one, I'm going to go really fast, and I hope it's okay. Okay, is that okay? It's hard to understand. It sort of busts your brain. It's difficult to grasp. That's why I put that there. I was racking my brain to think, what would this metaphor be? So you're trying to understand from a human point of view that thinks life has a nature, that ice cream is nice or bad, that boyfriends and girlfriends are nice or bad, and that's how I can get happy, get more of this, less of that. With that state of mind, which is upside down from an enlightened mind, you're trying to understand, how does an enlightened mind perceive itself? It's hard from this perspective. It's like the pen and the puppy dog? You guys just did it? Yeah? It's like a puppy dog trying to understand the complexities of human consciousness. It's like, oh, I see those humans going blah, 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 blah to each other. They must be talking about biscuits. What are they conceiving when they see us having experiences? It's difficult for us to conceive what. So there's commentaries, there's stuff the Buddha said, and I'm just going to go through the 6 things that happen when the last bodhisattva bhumi occurs. And the 8th bodhisattva bhumi, so once you've gone past the path of seeing, had a direct perception of emptiness, then you begin the long road, which is short in relation to of all time, up to 7 lifetimes, where you begin to remove the things that cause you suffering. You're no longer planting bad karmas. You're now accumulating merit. Mm-hmm.
So after seeing the happiness, so as you said, ice cream is bad and good, boyfriend is bad and good.
Mostly bad.
Mostly bad.
Yeah.
And by removing the bad part, are you also removing the good part?
Good question. You are removing the good part that appears to have a nature out there. You are removing what you think is good out there. You're not just keeping. So the good out there has a part of it that is misunderstanding. You're removing the misunderstanding. They say, imagine the highest peak of bliss you've ever had in this life. Ever. In your existence to date, there was a moment, there was a millisecond. All I can think of is like an orgasm, the first orgasm or something like that, where everything was just like sublime. Imagine that, or I don't know, maybe the birth of a child or something like where nothing could shake you in that millisecond, the highest peak of your most blissful experience on this planet. Imagine that. They say it's that multiplied by 100 million something all the time. Is the experience of bliss you have with every object. It doesn't have a nature. The nature's coming from you. So it doesn't have to feel good in a grasping way. It feels good beyond the grasping. So the short answer is no, you keep all the good stuff. You remove all the bad things. We'll cover it. But I want to highlight that you're not keeping the misunderstanding of the good we have right now. The good we have right now we have a thought about it that it's in it. That is the best job I'll ever have. That's not true. That is the best job you've ever had. So anyway, these are 6 things that occur, and they've got names and stories, and I'll cover them quickly so I can go to the substance of tonight, which is how do we remove the things that block us from that ultimate bliss, that heightened state that you would experience as a Buddha, enlightened. But they say a bodhisattva that's just about to flop over into the last milliseconds of bodhisattva to enlightenment, to Buddhahood, they say they perceive the total amount of knowable things. And here they mean things in the past, present. They know all objects. They're in meditation. Some conception occurs to them where they see all existing things. Past, present, and future. I'm saying it's hard to fathom, okay? they reach what's called the absolute end or the final limit. In the Hinayana track, they would call that the extreme of peace. They've reached Arhat. It's interesting. They've removed like the third of the three sufferings, which we'll cover in a second. All I'm going to ask you for next week's quiz is you just take a picture of this slide. I don't need you to think about it too much. Yeah, they achieve their Dharma body, which is the Dharmakaya, which is the emptiness of the Buddha's mind, mostly. They achieve enlightenment towards all objects, which means they understand the emptiness of all things, as opposed to noticing the dependent origination of all things, which is number one. They understand the emptiness of all simultaneously, something we can't do. So imagine in meditation, this is flipped into that, it's flipped into that, it's flipped into these 6 things that happen simultaneously, they say. And then they achieve their paradise body. They begin to perceive their body no longer as a breakable human body, but they see their body of light. So the same projections that were creating normal dying body or creepy body or lovely body, doesn't matter. All of a sudden, it's not not physical, but it's not made of matter. How's that? It's made of light. They achieve their rainbow body. And then they say, this is a tricky thing also, it's a difficult point. They achieve the course of infinite emanations of a Buddha. So if they're sitting there achieving their enjoyment body, meaning, oh, I've become a Buddha, then they also get the course of the millisecond after that to appear as Buddhas in all sorts of planets. Yeah, and then there's another story about how that appears on planets like planet Earth and the rest. Like they go through a similar dance as Shakyamuni Buddha did in this life. They appear to be born, they appear to age and get sick, they appear to die. This is a story. But anyway, I thought the course asks you to know this as question 1. That's really the only reason I had to put it up there. But I want to talk about the 3 sufferings, because this then goes to the point of the questions we've had so far. Does anybody know the 3 sufferings?
Like causations of samsara? Or
Just in general, Buddhist concept of 3 sufferings. Number 2 removes reaching the final limit, removes a third of the 3 sufferings. No.
Suffering of change.
So it's number 2, yeah.
Suffering change number 2?
Yeah.
Suffering of suffering.
Yeah, is number 1. Suffering of
Gross
suffering.
right?
Yeah, that's gross suffering, like headaches, pain aches.
I'm gross.
You're gross.
Yeah.
Your suffering of change, which is all nice things turn to shit. Yeah.
All pervasive.
All pervasive suffering. Cool. So here are the 3 sufferings, and they're like licking honey off a razor blade, but I couldn't find the honey. Huh?
Big razors off of honey.
And here is to your points of searching, okay, why are we studying this thing? Like, is it just interesting? And if you really take the time to ask, where is the problems in my life come from? And I mean any problem, internal or external. For me, it was the shitty boss, the bad relationships, the bad self-esteem, the loving coffee and then getting sick from coffee, opening a business and having trouble with the business, like the ups and downs. Like, where is all this shit coming from? I've worked 50 years to try and stop it. Why isn't it stopping? Yeah. Or 20 years. And really try and get that renunciation going. I really want to figure it out. So I'm going to look for real courses, and I'm going to look in here. So now for me, I've practiced 23 years, of which I've probably practiced 2 really well out of the 23. The rest is like beating out of my habits the way that life appears at me through meditation.
Renunciation's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, the word is hard for Westerners. Renunciation. I think I have to beat myself with a stick,
But I guess, I struggle with it when I think I've got it beat. and then something comes up and it's like,
It's
oh no.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a lot. It's okay. Renunciation is the experience of letting go.
so you like the things you like.
Is also, of course you do, yeah. But you also make efforts. Every millisecond, you get the opportunity to act in the world, mentally, verbally, and physically. All those things will have consequences. So yeah, okay, renunciation is hard. So is dying. So is breaking up. So is having to poop after you ate. Like, haven't you ever figured that out? Like, everything we're trying to do to get us happy keeps breaking. So, I like this food. Oh, shit. And I like this food. Oh, shit. Like, haven't you figured it out? Nothing's working.
No one's asking you to get rid of the things you like.
No one's asking you to.
Like,
Exactly.
perceive it and do it.
The things that you like also are caused by you. We just focus more on the things we don't like. But every good thing that's ever happened to you also forced upon you by the kindnesses you've done to others, instead of the hurt you've done to others. So the three, let me go 3 sufferings. 3 sufferings are suffering of outright suffering, which is like backaches, pains, etc. Suffering of change, which is the honey on the razor blade. Oh, it tastes good. Shit. Oh, it tastes good. Shit. Yeah. Everything ends, and then we're unhappy. We thought we were happy, and then it ends. We're unhappy. So they say you can't call something that ends necessarily in a suffering, you can't call it a happiness. If it must end in a suffering, it's a suffering. It's chocolate-covered broccoli. Yeah. Okay, chocolate-covered dog poop. Ooh. On a stick. I don't know, assuming you like chocolate. And then all-pervasive suffering, which is the condition of aging and death, which started when you got here. And I want to challenge you with this. Have you not noticed that even if you sprinkle more honey on it, it's still razor blade? There are some people that are 3 or 4 or 5 times removed from regular suffering, from any one of these sufferings. Right? There are people that are like, I don't have to suffer rent next month and rent next month and rent next month. I'm cool. I now have to suffer Apple not working, Mac not working. Yeah, but I'm at least, I've got more honey on my razor blade. I don't have to think about death. I don't have to think about cancer. I don't have to think about broken relationships. I've got a great relationship. I've got a great place over here. I've got good friends. I've got like 3 layers of honey. I'm good. That also ain't going to change it. That honey runs out. There's still a razor blade. And the razor blade is misunderstanding. It's not knowing that you're creating your world unwittingly by everything you do. And the only way to ever stop, it's not by loading the world with more and more happinesses that are temporary. It's by removing the bloody razor blade so you are left with real honey. Because you understand where honey came from in the first place. So then how do we create a paradise? In a paradise, sorry if that's a Christian word or a weird word, but imagine, like I began the class, New York isn't the nature that we experience. Your minds are creating the New York you're walking into. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's terrible. Which one do you want to keep? The awesome one. Well, what do you do to keep it? You have to remove the razor blade. And then it can be orgasmic all the time. And it won't be called New York. Because New York is the shitty thing. It would be called your Buddha paradise, your Okmin, your pure realm. So there is no suffering in that realm. The being in their pure land, in their pure realm, the one that has reached enlightenment, can't perceive suffering because they've run out of mental afflictions, the thing that caused them to create bad karmas. Yeah, their minds being pissed off has been removed. So then they don't they don't kill mosquitoes. They don't steal ice cream. They don't cheat on boyfriends. They've stopped the things that bother them, and they've removed the bad seeds that they've planted through that misunderstanding in the past. No karma, negative karma, no pissed off, weird state of mind with misunderstanding that produces karma. That's the 2 qualities of a pure realm. It's removed. And you're left with all the good things you've caused, bliss. So to create that kind of experience, which would be wherever your mind is, it's not like you're going off to heaven. You'd have to remove your mental afflictions, which produce your future suffering. So get rid of them. Imagine, like King Kalinga in the previous class, not being pissed off even if someone's chopping your arms off. You're no longer afflicted mentally. You're not going to create more suffering. You've got it. You're so free. Imagine really doing that, not trying not to be pissed off, not being pissed off. It's possible. Your minds have that capacity. I'm not saying go out and get your arms chopped off and see. I'm not saying that. I'm saying imagine your mind having the capacity of standing in front of something that might have afflicted you before and no longer being afflicted. And you've all done this. You've all been in front of a problem that was a problem before and then no longer a problem, but you have been able to sustain it. Yeah, I know Stephen overcame jealousy, like within a year of having a strong bout of jealousy, and it was hard to watch. You've all had jealousy. Imagine not having it. And then seeing whatever caused you jealousy before and go, oh, I'm free from that. Imagine that, no mental afflictions. Because you don't have a mental affliction of jealousy, you don't do all the fucked up shit that causes you to be jealous in the first place. You've just broken that cycle. Imagine. So in a Buddha paradise, you no longer have any at all causes mental afflictions. It's possible. Your mind is changing. Of course it's possible. And then you've got to eliminate all the shitty things you've done up until now. And if you're Buddhist, that includes every single past life from now until infinity. That's a lot.
Is the pain the monk experiences a mental affliction? And is he as close to enlightenment as he was before he got his limbs cut off because of the karma?
He might even be closer because he's not getting angry.
Okay.
And the afflicted state of mind that arose, that suffering, you can't say it's afflicted because he doesn't have ignorance. No. Yeah.
Well, it's a great question. I just feel like if it wasn't an affliction,
then he wouldn't experience it as pain. I know. He has pain.
It's the same way that, like, it's not like we choose to get angry, but anger comes up.
Yeah.
Then what we do with it, or how we understand that anger, is the wisdom that doesn't perpetuate the cycle. But in the same way that anger came up is similar to the same way that pain
came up. And how you choose to engage with it. So you have to say it was caused by some suffering he produced in the past.
Right.
That you have to say. Yeah? But then can you call it an affliction if it's the source for him to create his paradise? It's a fine question when you get to those weird last stages of regular being, enlightened being, and really worth debating. Yeah? Now, how do you eliminate all your mental afflictions? Meaning screwing up and creating bad karma. How do you remove that? And how do you eliminate all your old past karmas? Anyone?
With a shovel.
With a shovel is great. How would you remove your mental afflictions? What's the thing to do to remove all mental afflictions?
Isn't it like recognizing, that, like recognizing what, kind of see what kind of, like, how it started, essentially.
So what would you have to do that?
Find a cause.
Huh?
Find a cause and create a different cause instead. Understand emptiness.
Yeah, you'd have to understand emptiness. Now, you're all understanding emptiness now. Have you removed all your mental afflictions?
No.
How do you need to understand emptiness? Directly.
Perception.
Yeah. You have to reach a point where you can have a direct perception where you no longer believe the illusion that things have a nature. That will stop all mental afflictions through the path of habituation. So that's the only way. How do you remove old past karmas? All the bad, like this morning, you probably had a bad thought about someone. That's growing inside of you right now. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Last week you probably yelled at someone. I don't know how many of you, when your partners left the room, went online to see porn and went like, I hope they don't see me. You're planting those karmas too. Or whatever nasty shit you're doing in private, you're recording them too. Yeah? I'm just calling it out. Because we saw a movie. What did we see that was like that? It was.
We didn't say anything.
Well, that was me. What was it? No, there was. Oh, it was that dumb show with the person that got cloned.
Living with yourself.
Living with Yourself. I don't know if you've all seen it. Yeah. Anyway, it was a dumb show. But anyway, the guy cloned himself. He had two of him, and one of them wanted to be a writer and write stories. And so the clone went out to work, and he got to go home and start writing his story. And after day 3, it was like, I'll just watch porn nonstop, and like you can't. And he ended up doing the same problem that he had before, which is never getting on with his life like he thought he would. Yeah, the impulses for doing the shitty things you always done doesn't disappear because you just wish it. You've got to act. You've got to do something. And the only way to be able to act, to remove all mental afflictions, is to have this visceral, deep experience of reality so much that you will not believe the lie anymore. You don't believe that things have a nature, that angry people come from being angry people, that shitty bosses are shitty from themselves, that the value I get from a hug comes from the hug. You stop believing that bullshit. It's not out there. It's all in here. And all of a sudden, you have to, you won't have mental afflictions again and again and again because you won't plant them, because you know where things come from. The illusion, not true. You can get the perception, oh, I felt sad, but that sadness could not have come from a hug or from not a hug. Otherwise, everybody that walked around without a hug would be depressed. And some people don't like getting hugged. Hugs don't have anti-depression medicine. It's our minds labeling that experience, not by choice, but by impulse. Yeah. So correct emptiness and purifying all bad karmas, or the propensities we have to be angry, be jealous, be all the other things that bother our minds, they're still in there. You've got to clean them out. So if you want to reach a paradise, if you want to create a perception of what we used to call New York as paradise, got to see emptiness directly to remove the possibility of planting new shitty karma that forces rats with pizza in subways. You would see the data, but you would experience it as bliss. And it wouldn't be called rat with pizza in New York. It would be called your Buddha paradise. Another story. And then there is a way that you could break the effects of the bad past things that caused you to suffer in the first place. And this is an important practice. If done properly, you could really experience the removal and letting go of all these old shitty things that keep following you around. That's the 4 forces. So let's go there. So you'd get really busy wanting to clean all your old bad karmas, the ones you remember and the ones you don't remember. Yeah, you'd get that busy. And I just want to highlight, it was spoken by the Buddha. Does anybody know them, the 4 forces? Someone? You don't look it up.
I don't remember it.
You don't remember. We had a chat about it, right? The other day.
This isn't the art one, right?
Yeah!
Oh!
Do it, girl! Do it!
No,
No, okay.
I'm not.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I'll show you. I'll show you the traditional Tibetan, and then we'll do the review.
Tala's got it.
Tala's got it. Okay, go.
Okay. So you understand emptiness. So you try to trace back the seed.
Before going that, let's pick a bad deed.
Yeah.
Let's pick a seed that we've planted, something that we can all understand, and try and break the consequences of that karma to make it understandable. So pick one. Like, what's a shitty thing you could remove?
Yelling at someone.
Huh?
Yelling at someone.
Okay, so you are learning about karma and emptiness. You realize everything will have a consequence, and then you just lost it. Someone pissed you off and you yelled at them, "You stupid bitch." Yeah? Then you just planted something, yeah?
So you just planted the seed. So then you have intelligent regret about it,
Mm-hmm.
which means like it's not guilt, it's more like as if you baked a cake with too much sugar and then you're tasting it like, oh, there's too much sugar in this. And so then you vow to never do it again.
Uh-huh.
And you like you counteract it.
Cool. Yeah. What was the first one? You were so good, right?
Yeah.
The first one?
Yeah. What was the first of the 4? You just gave me 3.
No, she gave them all.
She gave it. She
You-
said you think of the emptiness.
Oh, you did say think of the emptiness. Okay, cool. Congratulations. Let's see what Buddha says in the sutra. This might be a question 3 on your next homework. The sutra on the 4 practices. It's called the foundation because after you've fallen, you push yourself up from that ground. And that ground is taking refuge in bodhicitta, but it really is remembering your understanding of where this came from. Karma and emptiness. You've got to go back to that foundation. So on that foundation of real reality, you can lift yourself up. In other words, you say, why did she piss me off enough for me to yell at her? So you've got to figure that out. You go, oh, my impulse to yell at her and her yelling at me, both caused by my propensity to be aggressive towards others. How do I know that? I just experienced aggression. Want to stop aggression? It doesn't come that way. It must be in here. So I must have the seeds to continue that cycle. I want to bust that cycle. Does that make sense? So think of the emptiness of the situation. We did the emptiness of the 3 spheres last week. And so you'd go there as much as you to get grounding. Because now you're working with reality, capital R, reality, not just nominal reality. And then after that, you're like, let's destroy the bastard, the destruction force. And here you said it right. It's intelligent regret. You recognize, you said like putting too much sugar in the cake. It's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have, right? You realize that putting too much sugar in the cake and the cake's in the oven, it's gonna be too sweet. It's gonna be so sweet people won't like it. So you have this intelligent regret. Not guilt is good, where you realize that action will have consequences. Yelling at her I'm going to have to experience the result of some other people yelling at me with the same kind of nastiness as my mind had when I yelled at her, except amplified. Results are bigger than the cause. And so you get this sort of sickening feeling of, shit, I want it out of me, but it's in there, it's growing 65 times a finger snap, multiplying every day times 2, times 4, times 8, and so on. Do the karma course for that. So it's like you've just drank poison. You've just drank the courses for people yelling at you in the future. And so the quicker you pull out that seed, the less likely it'll be overwhelming for you. So you get this kind of, shit, I want to take it out. Not shit, I'm bad. That doesn't help anyone. It's shit, I want it out, done. It's like surgical remove. I'm committed to getting it out. And so what do you think the next one is? This is the one that's like most useful in these 4 forces. Restraint. Like, don't do that shit again. So make a commitment. And you said forever, but you shouldn't promise something you know you'll break. So don't say, I'll never get angry again, because then you're going to add a lie to the yelling. Yeah. Say, next time this comes up, I'll try really hard not to lie. Or for the next 2 hours, I will not lie to anyone or yell at anyone. And then go to the room, lock the door, and go, done, 2 hours have passed, they can come out. You stupid bitch! No, don't do that. Thanks. So make a commitment, like make a mental effort, put some force, restraining force. So commit to not doing it again and keep your promise. So make the promise relevant to what your capacity is. So let's say it's drink driving. You just killed someone, drink driving.
Drink driving.
What do you? We call it drink driving, don't we?
Yeah.
Thank you. What's your name?
I'm Lou.
Lou. Lou. Okay, Lou. Lou and I agree that it's drink driving. Your perception is incorrect. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, and Maya. Thank you.
Wow.
So,
Weird.
drink driving. What do you guys call it? Drunk driving. Shut up. Okay. Anyway, drunk or drink driving. You just
Well,
killed.
because you are drunk. Yeah. I mean,
I understand it.
One's
you
more
can say
right.
both.
Yeah.
Let's just call it drank driving.
Drank. Everyone can be together. So imagine you just killed someone because you drank too much. You drink too much.
We say liquor driving.
What do you say?
Liquor.
Liquor? Oh, liquor driving. In Chinese, that's how you say it? Liquor driving. That's hilarious. Okay. You guys don't have wine, you just have liquor. Okay. It's like expensive. Includes all the alcohol driving. So you just make a commitment. If you can keep it, I won't drink and drive anymore. Done. Forever. If you can keep it. If you can't, then you've got to promise something you can keep. But it's got to be a stretch. It's got to be an effort. You need to break that seed down in your mind with force, with restraint. Yeah? So you've already gone, the seed doesn't have a nature, but it's going, because of that, it's going to have the consequences of what I did. I don't want those consequences. I stop creating those consequences from now on, or from now until tomorrow, or whatever you can promise. But you can't say, I won't ever lie again. Right? You got to say, I won't lie for a period of time, regardless of what happens. And I've done this in Australia, working for a company in the government, where I made this commitment, and I'm like, shit, I've got to not lie. So I made a commitment, regardless of what people ask, I will not lie for today. And my boss came up and asked me some bad question I can't remember, but I remember the consequence of having to tell him the truth, that I screwed up what other people thought someone else had screwed up, and I had to say it was me. And it was the hardest thing to do. It sounds easy, but it was the hardest thing to do, when it was easy for someone else to get the blame or another department to get the blame. For me to know that I had to say, because I made a promise, I had to say to him, actually it was me that screwed up that report. And then live with the consequences. But it felt powerful to be able to address that karma for me. I didn't get in trouble. And then the last one, antidote. Anecdote, you can do an anecdote if you like, but an antidote would be good. And an antidote is the kind of opposite to the flavor of what you planted. So make a commitment that this next action or this next thing would be planting the opposite kind of karma. So if it's yelling, then I'm going to only speak gently to my lover for the next 2 days. I'm just going to say kind things. No sarcasm, no memes, no, which is impossible in our relationship. Whatever it is. There's a story of Ken Rinpoche. He had a student who was in the Vietnam War, and he wasn't sure whether he'd killed people, but he knows he shot over the forest. It's likely that I did. What do I do? And Ken Rinpoche, who's my teacher's teacher, said, there's a neighbor that has sheep that go to the slaughter, get some of those sheep, take care of them for the rest of their natural life, dedicating it to the possibility that you might have killed other beings, and use that as your antidote force. Now, they say that the highest antidote to any negative karma is studying emptiness. Why so? Why would that be?
These things are empty. The antidote itself is empty.
Mm-mm.
Because
If you understand emptiness, you won't plant that seeds again. We talked about it before, but it's give me a bit more.
if you study emptiness, then you're more likely to have a direct perception of emptiness, and that ceases any mental fiction, so you purify your karma.
Cool. Okay, cool. And here's the 4 R's. if you want to. Is that there? Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to remember, it's refuge, regret, restraint, remedy. Yeah? And that's for Zoe.
Yeah, sick. I just was gonna post that tonight.
Yeah, good. So just do it with something that's in your mind, that some negativity you've planted. Play with this and try and say, what's the emptiness of this? How do I really wish that I didn't have to live with the consequences of that, but I will. So I regret it. I don't want to do that again. So I commit not to doing it for a period of time. And then in its place, to counteract it, I'm going to go and do this kindness out there, or study emptiness or whatever it is. Yeah, just do it. See what it feels like. Maybe we can talk about it next week. Now I need 5 more minutes of your time. And Supriya, can you read the next part of the sutra? Because we began the entire course with this part. Is it up there? Loud.
O Subhuti, any son or daughter of noble family
Wait a second. Which is a bodhisattva. Okay. Yeah.
takes up a sutra like this, or who holds it, or reads it, or comprehends it, will suffer. They will suffer intensely. Why is it so? Such beings are purifying non-virtuous karma from the entire string of their previous lives, karma that would have taken them to the 3 lower realms. As they purify this karma, it causes them to suffer here in this life. As such, they will succeed in cleaning away the karma of these non-virtuous deeds of their previous lifetimes, and they will as well achieve enlightenment.
Did you understand that? Emptiness, the thing, the key or the code to the matrix, screws up the nucleus of every single karma that you've ever done with misunderstanding. It fucks it up. The understanding emptiness destroys not just the immediate seed you're trying to fix, but your conception of self-existence in the first place is screwed up by putting your mind on this over and over and over. So much so that a collection of karmas that you might have had to, they say, go to lower realms, yeah, experience whole lifetimes of suffering, could appear, and they say in commentaries, like a headache in this lifetime. Because your mind has been going to the nucleus of why we misunderstand the world and create the suffering in the first place. And as you're trying to place your mind on really how things operate, all the seeds that are coming your way with suffering are beginning to be broken. And so that's why anyone who studies this sutra, according to Buddha, will suffer. They will suffer the things that they would have had to live for eons in suffering as minor sufferings. Because karma still have to give consequences. It's not like they stop giving results. And so it's like you're stirring the pot, or you're moving the soil, and all the bad seeds are coming up and little seedlings are coming up, and then the sunshine of wisdom burns them. I don't know if that metaphor helps at all. So the highest antidote is to study emptiness. And there's another sutra, the King of Concentration Sutra, says that the power of studying emptiness causes existing karmic seeds that would have taken you to a lower birth ripen quickly, but with much less force, like a headache. So then, if you understand that, then you would understand how to bring your mind to the idea of emptiness over and over and over and over and over and over and see its results. It is like an ultimate antidote. So let's hear the exit of the sutra here, and then we can finish.
Subhuti, I remember that in the past countless aeons before the advent of Diamond Cutter Buddha, I met 84,000 billions of Buddhas to whom I made offerings and whom I served faultlessly. Now if in the last period in the Buddha Kalpa someone is able to receive, retain, read and recite this sutra, His merits will far exceed mine, which resulted from my offering made to Buddhas. For mine cannot be reckoned as 100th, 1,000th, 1/10,000th, or 100,000th part thereof. In fact, no computation nor comparison is possible. Subhuti in the last period of the Buddha Kalpa, if a virtuous man or woman is able to receive, retain, read, and recite this sutra, my full statement of this person's merits will create derangement, doubt, and disbelief in the minds of all listeners. Subhuti, you should know that as the meaning of this sutra is inconceivable, so is the fruit of its reward. Defining the book.
So what she was saying was that what she was saying that the Buddha said was that the Buddha, 84,000 Buddhas before him, he did good things towards them, pleased them all. That's really good karma. That's really awesome causes for his own enlightenment. Anyone in the last 500, in the last era of where the Dharma would exist, that really got to the essence of emptiness. They got to understand that their minds are capable of transforming what appears to be suffering this way. And because of their understanding of what it actually comes from, its actual nature, anyone that understands it would have way more merit than he did for having pleased 84,000 Buddhas. And that's talking about you and me and us. That's what made you touch it, not to make you suffer. It was just bad timing. Anyone would suffer. Yeah.
I was actually looking at the four courses on my phone because I didn't want to take the picture.
Yeah, I see. So, and it's not, and what I don't want you to walk away with is like some mystical, like, oh, there's something in this sutra. How would that be possible? I'd love you to think about that. How is it that we might perceive tomorrow's suffering as a purification of a whole life in another realm? How is it that understanding just the essence, the 4 lines of this sutra that understands emptiness as we've been describing, how is it that that could give you more merit than any kind of giving that's thousands and thousands multiplied goodness, even of a Buddha? How can that for you be more beneficial? Knowing emptiness in the way we've been describing it and the consequences that has for our lives. How is that better than any course of the Buddha's life? If you could think about that, and if you dare come back to next week, I'd love to discuss it because there's something in that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you need to do your homeworks and quizzes, you can go to the Quizlet there. There's a password and the materials, which is all the readings, quizzes, and homeworks are there. Let's do a dedication. Joy is part of enlightenment too. Who was the umse?
I was
Hi, ums. Fukia Jushin Metotram Rira Lingshi Yindegam Padi Sange Shindu Miteguargi Dropun Namdar Shimba Uparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami Diyagoku Sunam Yeshe Dzog Dzog Shin Sunam Yeshe Lejun Wei Dampa Kuni Topar Show. Thank you for letting me rant. And I hope that something landed in there and that it connected in some way. Just take one thread or whatever you can hold until next week. Let it come back to your mind over and over and see what it feels like to put on that view in your world. The world's going to continue being the world, but can you shift your view?